Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aparutade sangamata satavara ye sodavanta bamunjantu satang. So today, this opportunity reflects on Dhamma, the reality of here and now. So to emphasize over and over again, here and now, because that's what we're experiencing all the time, wherever state of mind we're in, whatever place or who we're with. So this is a very direct pointing. So in winter's retreat, where we have a lot of time to just investigate Dhamma, and we have a lot of doubts arise and restlessness, because we seldom live in a way that creates this open space to just reflect on the way it is, when we're not busy doing things or accomplishing things or being entertained or resting or eating. So life on the worldly level is an endless distraction to the mind, because we get bored very quickly. So I found being a monk, where you have so much time and to be bored, and then you felt you have a meditation technique that you become very attached to, a certain type of meditation practices, certain views of how to meditate. You form opinions and what's good practice, what is bad practice, or what is no practice. We have ideals, or we have doubts and negative and criticisms of ourselves or others. So the mind gets busy with the thoughts that arise, all about oneself or one's practice, or how we relate to somebody else in the Sangha or the lay community. So many of us have been through that point of either boredom, where the technique no longer works very well, and where we just feel what am I doing? A lot of doubt and worry, and I'm wasting my time. I could be helping the world, solving the world's problems, working for climate change, for democracy, for all kinds of noble causes. Or maybe I should disrobe and just get married and have a family. So these thoughts arise in our minds, and then we make judgments about what a bhikkhu, what a siladhara should think if we're really good. If I'm a proper bhikkhu following the Ajahn Chah tradition, then I shouldn't have such thoughts assume that Luang Por Chah never thought about disrobing and getting married and starting a family. We make all kinds of assumptions about the teacher. Somebody like Ajahn Chah was a very, approachable monk. But my first few years with him, I saw him as an enlightened master who didn't have the problems, who was a good monk right from the beginning, in the quotation, good. My ideal of what a good bhikkhu is all the time. So the thinking mind is a critical function. Its very nature is to criticize, to compare. When you contemplate languages, you're studying Pali or Sanskrit or Chinese or Tibetan or English or Thai, they're all based on this, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. And so when we're children, we form strong views of what's good and what's bad according to the conditioning we receive from our parents or peers or family or through our education. So we live in a world of heaven and hell, male and female, right and wrong, good and bad, where everything is divided. And that's what language does. That's what its function is. So as long as we cling to language, whether it be our native tongue or English or Thai or Pali, they're very limited. Languages are creations. They're not the deathless reality of here and now. When we use the word Dhamma, apparent here and now, the word itself is a sankhara. And so we take refuge in the Dhamma, and we take refuge usually in a view of Dhamma as absolute reality or the absolute truth. We give it these superlative words to describe it. But when we reflect, according to the direct pointing of the Buddhist teaching, the Dhamma is apparent here and now. It's not a word. Its ultimate reality is here and now. So whether you realize it or not, your true nature is ultimate reality here and now. Not what you're thinking or your position, your gender, your beliefs, your views and opinions. So it can't get much more simple than this. It's a Puto, the mantra we use in this tradition, the Buddha's name, is to witness, to be the awakened individual reflecting on the way it is. So Buddha knows the Dhamma, apparent here and now. So in this winter's retreat, I encourage you to trust yourself, to just give up all your views and opinions about good practice, bad practice, what's right or what's wrong, or true or false, and just open. It's kind of wide open listening state where which is apparent here and now. It's not something you objectify. You can't. It's not to be seen, heard, smelled, taste, or touch, but it's apparent because it's what you really are all the time. So this is a very direct approach. And this is what the Four Noble Truths is about. It's not about gradual development or attainment or achievements or getting this and getting rid of that, even though the scriptures tend to give this impression. We've got to kill the kilesas and get samadhi. We've got to get something we don't have. We've got to get rid of the bad thoughts, the bad emotions, to become a good person when you're already perfect. Now, when I tell you you're perfect, then you have no reference to that, because the ordinary human individual sees themselves through their views and opinions, their memories, their ideas. All their guilt, remorse about things of the past, their hopes for the future, their ambitions, their what they've been told they are by their parents, by their society. So we've been told we're all kinds of things. I remember my mother telling me that I was not mathematically inclined, that mathematics wasn't one of my great gifts. So I assumed that I was not mathematically inclined. I took for granted that my mother was right. So I always dreaded mathematics and algebra and geometry. And then when I was studying for my bachelor's degree, I had to take a course in order to graduate in algebra, or a scientific subject. So I thought algebra, but I'm not mathematically inclined. But I signed up for this course, and I was really good at it. And it totally surprised me, because before that I was going on the assumption of what I heard from my mother, who had good intentions. She wasn't criticizing me for that, but just what we assume we are from the information we get when we're growing up, our education, our society, our peers, our relatives, our neighbors, and have an effect on us. So we experience life through the senses. So the life experience as a human man or woman is experienced through what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think. This is our reality. The real world is a sensory experience that we make value judgments about as right or wrong, good or bad. And this is encouraged to be investigated. You're not trying to get rid of the conditioning, but to have the insight, the profound insight that we're not a conditioned form, and not what we think and what we've been told. Doubt I found, was one of my methods that I used a lot, because my nature is to think a lot, try to find answers to questions and solutions to problems. And I quite like intellectual experiences and opportunities and thinking. I used to enjoy reading. I enjoyed studying. So I experienced life through, I had very good ideals. I was very idealistic. But then in my experience as a samana, as a monk, where I had a lot of time to not read. In fact, Luang Por Sumedho told me when I first met him to not read anything for the first vasa, first pansa. He said, if you have books, put them all underneath your kuti, don't look at them. And that was, I thought, what am I going to do in the pansa? 3 months, I have nothing to read. But I was quite, one of my ideals was being obedient to a teacher. I wanted to train with Vinaya because I knew I needed to surrender to precepts, to rules, rather than just manipulate life according to my habit patterns, my own judgments, value judgments. But then life was very boring, without anything to read. And then being in a society, like in a Thai monastery, whose language I couldn't understand, then there was all kinds of doubts, frustrations, paranoia. I'd get paranoid. There's all kinds of emotional states, reactions to being in a situation that I couldn't control, that I just had to reflect upon. And a lot of it was doubt. What am I doing here? Is this the right tradition, or what's going on when when you're learning another language through just living in the society? And so all kinds of negative emotions would arise. And Luang Por Sumedho's advice was always to watch the mind. Be the puto, the witness to the way it is. Well, this was really helpful because I actually found I could do this. I could actually tune in to watch my paranoid fears or frustrations or doubts or worries or opinions I'd form. And believe me, during that pansa, I had a lot of doubts, frustrations, and opinions about myself, about the monks I was living with, because that's how I trained my mind to be aware and then have what a good bhikkhu is. I could make value judgments about other bhikkhus. He's a good bhikkhu, he's not a good bhikkhu. So doubt is the third fetter. There's Sakkayaditthi, which is the first fetter, which is ego. Silapata Paramasa, which is attachment to forms, institutions, ceremonies. Traditions. Then Vicikiccha, which is doubt. Now, these first three fetters are very important to investigate because when you break through these first three fetters, when you investigate them and have the insight into them, then that's the stream entry point. The Sotapanna is one who has seen through, investigated the first three fetters, and understands that they're all artificial creations by human beings. Like language itself is created by human beings. Whatever language there is, it's not created by God or by gorillas or birds or anything like that. It's created by human beings to explain experience through the senses. So language itself is, they have good periods, bad periods, beauty, ugliness, right and wrong, virtue and vice. These are all words describing experience or conditions that we have through our senses. So we assume we are this form, this body, because we've been told we are this body. And as far as experience goes, it seems right. Because my experiences are through this form, through this old form, through these eyes, ears, nose, through the tongue, through my memories, thoughts, perceptions. That's experience. That's what we call experience. It's through the sensual world is an experience. But awareness is not an experience. It's apparent here and now. It's reality here and now. It's not experienced through the senses. It's recognized through letting go of our conditioning, our ego, our cultural conditioning, religious conditioning, through our opinions and views, our ideals. So the insight into these first three fetters is the insight of letting go. So then we refer to the wisdom teaching of the Buddha, Sape Sankara, all conditions are impermanent. And they are, just through investigation. Try to find a condition that has any real permanent quality to it. Like we have memories, and they arise and cease according to conditions. Can you have a permanent memory that just stays with you throughout the day and night, or an opinion, or an emotion, or a feeling? Even your body has to change postures. Sitting, standing, walking, lying down, your body needs rest, needs to lie down, needs to exercise. Investigating the body is very interesting because we're so conditioned to hold on to, we are this body, I am this senior monk. And that's, on the conventional level, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's having a title or a position is an experience you create through thinking. So I've been given titles, and they've been appreciated, but you can't sustain the title. try to hold on to your position as a junior monk or junior nun throughout the day and night. I remember the word Ajahn we apply to a bhikkhu or siladhara who has 10 pansas, 10 vasas. So when suddenly we have 10 vasas and we're Ajahns, that means teacher. And so that becoming an Ajahn is an achievement, so we make a big deal about being Ajahn this or Ajahn that. Or a Mahatera. So if we're still caught in the first 3 fetters, then we become Ajahns, we become Mahateras, we become abbots, we become siladharas, we become bhikkhus, we become anagarikas, and on and on. And then lay people, we identified as being a lay person. And these titles, when you look at them, they're given to you. To the lay people in this temple this time, can you keep the position of being a lay person throughout the day and night? It's a term, a conventional term we apply that is given to you. So anything we get is impermanent. The body is impermanent, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the feelings, the emotions, these all change according to whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, whether it's warm or cold. And then you ask yourself, am I really a conditioned form? Am I really the ego that I assume I am? Like my encouragement is to reflect, to think, deliberately think and be the watcher of thoughts. And I'm surprised how few people really get that. Something that seemed quite easy for me to do, just to think, I am Ajahn Sumedho, and I began to see that's, I can think, I'm nobody, or I'm somebody. And I watch the thoughts. I can think I'm the best monk in the whole world, and see that as just words, using the superlative, applying to myself as a person who's the best, as a bhikkhu who's the best. But I'm not interested in the words bhikkhu or best. I'm interested in the space between the words, because we don't notice that. We're not aware of the gap between the words that we are used to thinking. And yet it's here and now. Whatever you're thinking, you can't think the personal pronoun I in a continuous way. You have to think I, and then you have to think I again. But it has no continuity. And the English personal pronoun is very simple, isn't it? It's just one letter. But then the space between I and am, we ignore. Because the language we've learned we're thinking with is about grammar, about pronouns, verbs, adjectives, which are all forms of grammar. So we've been trained in grammar, we think in grammatical patterns that are habits. But between all the words, there's a space. You can't think, I am Ajahn Sumedho as a continuous, lasting form. It arises and ceases according to conditions, it's convention. So the space between the words arises doubt because we're not used to not thinking. You know, it's a totally new experience to witness not knowing. Between I and am, there's a gap that can be totally ignored a whole lifetime until we make a deliberate effort to take an interest in the gap by deliberately thinking I, and there's nothing there. Then immediately the verb am comes into consciousness because they're connected in grammatical habits. But we're not interested in grammar anymore, or right grammar, or wrong grammar, bad grammar, but in the space between the words. Whether your grammar is good or bad doesn't matter. It's about the space. And everyone has a space between the words they're thinking. And that space is not knowing. You don't know that's why we emotionally feel very frustrated with not knowing. We think of the space between I and am as something to really grasp. You can't grasp it. But you can recognize it. And it's silent. But emotionally, we might feel frustrated because our habit is to think, I am. So you feel like an incomplete by not finishing the grammatical pattern where the space leaves you kind of hanging in thin air. It doesn't seem like anything, and it's not anything. It's not a thing. It's apparent here and now, timeless. So by taking an interest in the space between words, we're no longer interested in the words we use, whether they're right or wrong, good or bad, appropriate, good speech, bad speech. It's not about right and wrong anymore, it's about the way it is. So, and doubt is grasping language, words, the thinking process. As long as you grasp thinking as your identity, then you're going to be caught in doubt. Like we have periods where we feel doubts about our meditation. I'm not practicing the way I used to. I need to practice more. I'm losing my samadhi. I've lost the path. What am I to do? And I need to go off and live in a cave in order to get my samadhi back. And these are all thoughts that arise in the mind. So no matter whether you think, I've lost my practice, I used to be good at this and now I'm not, My mind's all over the place. It's hopeless. I can't stop thinking. I just try to stop thinking. I try to suppress thinking. But then I just think, and I can't stop it. What am I to do? But you can be aware of what am I to do is words. Who am I that has to get good samadhi, who has to get through, get rid of the kilesas, has to get something or get rid of something? Who is this person that wants to be perfect as a person? A perfect person is not possible. Our personalities are conditioned, they're illusory. They're not real. And yet that's what we hold to and operate from the ego. I'm not a good meditator, my samadhi's not good, my practice is bad, it's degenerated. These are, when you start just thinking, my practice is degenerated, those are words. Degenerate my practice are words created by human beings, they're sankharas. They arise and cease, they're habit patterns. So when you begin to investigate doubt, it's taking, learning to take your stand with not knowing, not to know anything. There was I remember meeting a Korean Zen master years ago whose method of teaching was don't know mind. Develop the don't know mind. And I thought that was very good. The don't know mind, because we want to know, where am I a stream enterer or I'm not? Am I just a Vituchana, just an ordinary deluded person? Am I wasting my life? I can't practice anymore. I think too much. I worry. And so all these are grist for the mill. I worry all the time. That's thoughts, empty thoughts, words in the English language. I worry too much. I'm a habitual worry. That's a creation you create with the English language or whatever language you think in. But if I worry too much, I can start examining that I worry too much. The space between the words isn't a person. It has no personality. It's not male or female. But it is here and now. And when we don't recognize this, then we actually believe that my practice is degenerated. We believe that and operate from, I've got to get it back. I had a good practice last year, but my practice is degenerated now. If we always operate from that delusion, you're always going to experience doubt, no matter how many years you meditate, how long you sit in front of the shrine meditating. If you're still caught in doubt and the illusion of you are the ego and the culture and conditioning, even the religion is a conditioning. Buddhism is conditioning. Sankharas, they're all sankharas. Buddha, the word itself, is a condition. So we're not trying to get rid of the conditions, but to realize we're not the condition. Then what are we? What are we if we're not a person, a man or a woman? What are we then? Then the thinking might think, I'm nobody, I'm nothing. If I'm not somebody, then I'm nobody. And that affects us emotionally. To become nobody is not an attitude we want to cling to. But even if we do cling to I'm nobody, that's still an illusion. Because you think, I, as a person, am nobody. And that's language again. Creation, it's the born, the created, the formed, the conditioned, that we identify with, grasp, and operate from. So it's really important. Why I keep repeating the same advice. Sometimes I feel, I've said it so many times, there's no need to say anything more. Just shut up, be quiet. And then people tell me they feel very grateful for these reminders. Because we do need reminding. Because the conditioning, the ego, the cultural conditioning, social conditioning, the language we have is such a strong influence. It's experience that we want the experience of enlightenment. We think of enlightenment as an experience that we can have as a person. And that's an illusion. If you're not a person, if you're nobody, how can you experience enlightenment? Nobody experiences enlightenment. And that can be depressing. I think, what am I doing here in a monastery when nobody gets enlightened? And taking the words literally, I'm nobody and nobody gets enlightened, then I operate from that kind of despair. I've spent 58 years Is it a waste of a lifetime? If I'm nobody, to come to the realization I'm nobody. But I'm nobody is just a reference point, because the point, the refuge is in the space between I am nobody, not in the meaning of the words. Our personalities never get enlightened. Like Sakyaditi, can't ever, no matter how idealistic and pure you might think you are, as long as you, believe that you operate from being very virtuous and good and proper, that's still Sakyaditi, that's ego. That's words. So words aren't enlightened. They're not, you have the word enlightened, which is another word. But enlightenment is apparent here and now, timeless, encouraging investigation, leading inwards. We're not seeking it as something we can objectify and go out to and get. Bhajatang Waitita Poinui is to be experienced individually. We have to realize this for ourselves, not just quote teachers or words we hear from Zen masters or enlightened masters or Luang Por Cha. So doubt, boredom, life is boring actually. Having a body, being a person is a rather boring experience because it's so changeable and it's not true. Samsara is the experience of boredom, restlessness. That's why we seek experience through all kinds of devices. Romance, adventure, excitement. They're exciting experiences. Or staying in your kuti, being bored, not having no romance, no adventures, no excitement, can be very boring, restless. But who is restless? Who is bored? Is awareness bored, or is the emotional state because you're used to romance, adventure, and excitement? So these first three fetters, once you investigate them thoroughly and you let go of them, then the path is stream entry. It's understanding you know the path beyond doubt. It's not, do I really know the path? Or am I a stream enterer or not yet? It's not about am I or do I, it's knowing the reality of the path is here and now. It's not something, it's not even a path, because here and now is not a path. It's awakened awareness. Pure conscious awareness, which is not a path. It doesn't go anywhere but here and now. So I ask that this reflection, encouragement, not a criticism, just to encourage you to be brave and take a stand with awareness here and now, rather than with some method of meditation or ideas that you have about what you are, what you need to do. But whatever, what I am, what I need to do is still words, and so it just to be aware that words are just empty phenomena. No matter how profound or vulgar the word may be, it's just an empty phenomenon. And that's all it amounts to. Where conscious awareness here and now is with us here and now, wherever, whatever state, whatever emotion we're feeling, whatever age we are, whatever gender, it doesn't matter. It's not about these labels, these positions, but in awakening to Dhamma, ultimate reality. So I offer this as a reflection. Ajahn Sumedho to Amaravati. He'll be here for quite a few months, and he's one of my best friends, and he's done a lot for the Sangha, so I want to welcome him and appreciate his presence at this time.